Happy Friday, everyone. I am so glad that you could join me today. We're going to have some fun this morning. Now, one of the things that I have not addressed, I can't even remember the last time we talked about keto coffee. Now, again, I forgot to put this on Do Not Disturb. Okay, let's just do that. Now, let's see what else I've forgotten this morning. Hopefully, that's it. Hopefully we've got this. Okay. Now, I've got to tell you, keto coffee is not something that I have every day. And the reason that I don't have keto coffee every day is because keto coffee is a wonderful way to give you a boost if you haven't gotten enough fat, if you're not satiated, if you are used to eating breakfast and you just don't have time for breakfast. A nice, great, big, frothy cup of keto coffee is an amazing way to get things going. It gives you the fat that you need sometimes for energy to make your body satiated. So that's a good thing. And so if it's such a good thing, why don't we drink it every day? Well, I'm going to tell you a story about a client that I had many, many moons ago. And before she was a client, she came to me and she said, I want to do keto. What do I do? I know about keto coffee. How do I make it? So we talked about how you make just a plain cup of keto coffee. And as we were having that discussion, she got all excited. She said, I love cream in my coffee, and the butter sounds a little bit weird, but I'll try that. And she came back to me about 3 weeks later and she said, keto doesn't work for me. And I said, okay, what was going on? She said, well, I did exactly what you said and I gained weight. I said, okay, so tell me about what you did. She said, well, I got up in the morning and I had a cup of keto coffee. And then I had another cup a little bit later on. And then, maybe a third cup. And then I would have lunch. And then in the afternoon, I would have 2 or 3 cups of keto coffee. And then I would have supper and then whatever it was she had in the afternoon. Imagine how much extra fat she was adding to her diet. Now, something that a lot of people are confused about, and I'm going to go back to the basics here a little bit. Keto coffee, or keto, the ketogenic lifestyle, the ketogenic way of eating is not a weight loss diet. It has never been a weight loss diet. It's never going to be a weight loss diet. It is an appropriate way to nourish a human body. Okay, now, that being said, we are going to make some coffee creamers today. Now, I did a dairy version of this, and for those of you who can't have or don't want to have dairy, we are going to do a non-dairy version. So in this one, and you're going to want to write this down, in this one, let me just click on something here. In this one, we have half a cup of butter. We have 45 grams of coconut oil, a pinch of Redmond's real salt. You guys know that that's my favorite. And I'm just going to remind you, the reason that I use Redmond's is not because it's cheaper, it's not because it's handy and I can grab it at any local grocery, because you can't, but Redmond's real salt has so many trace minerals in it that we need. So it is, in my opinion, the best salt that you can get. So, half a cup of butter, 45 grams, so 125 grams of butter, 45 grams of coconut oil. Now, I used butter flavored coconut oil, and I did that just because I love the flavor of butter. But know that when you buy coconut oil that is butter flavored or it's deodorized, that means it is more processed. If you can get a cold pressed organic coconut oil, that is the best of the best. Now, we're going to turn this into the amazing coffee creamers that you guys know and love. So I have a cup of coffee here this morning. Now, typically, I don't put cream or anything in my butter because if I'm going to be eating one meal a day and I'm going to get all of my nourishment from that one meal in the day, I don't want anything extra. The fat that my body is burning, I want it to be mine. But that doesn't always work. If you're not fat adapted, that probably is not going to work for you so much. Okay, so we're going to get this other going first. So this is going to be a non-dairy version. So this is 170 grams of coconut oil. And I've melted this just to save us a little bit of time. And we're going to put this in here. Now, I have somebody off camera that is going to come and stir this for us while we're making the other stuff. So we're going to put this in here, and I'm going to turn this on. Okay, come on. There we go. I'm just going to turn it on low. You don't want to scorch this. Now, when you're doing the dairy version, if you want a caramel flavor, put your butter in the pan, let it melt, and let it brown a little bit. And when it's brown, then you're going to start adding the cream. Now this one, because we're doing a non-dairy version of this one, I am using organic coconut cream. So this is going to be absolutely delicious. And we can do different flavors with different things. So let's get this opened up. And the one that I have ready, that's made with cream and butter and a little bit of coconut oil, and half a cup of half a cup of sweetener. Now I'm using erythritol to sweeten this. Now you've got to remember, if you're using erythritol to sweeten something that you're making, it's going to, when it cools, you're going to get little crystals in there. You can use stevia drops, liquid stevia. That will get rid of that. If you live in the States, and if you do, I'm a little bit jealous right now, because the best option if you're making this is allulose. Now let's get all of our ingredients in here. We've got the coconut oil. Now we're going to measure this, because this is a 400 milliliter can, and I want 250 grams-ish. You would think that I would have checked that out first, right? But I really did not. Whoops. Okay. Now that is going to leave me a wonderful little bit of coconut cream left. You can see in here. And that will be awesome for later. Now this one, I'm going to add, okay, let me get this in here. Can I talk and pour at the same time? Sometimes yes, other times not so much. Okay. Okay, now we are going to whisk this, and that's important. And we're just going to leave that cooking. I'm also going to add the half a cup of sweetener and just a pinch of Redmond's real salt. And you see the steam coming, or the smoke coming off of there. That isn't smoke, that's actually powder from the sweetener that I just put in there. Now this needs to be whisked and whisked and whisked and whisked until it's done. So we're just going to turn that up one notch until it's done. And we're going to set this aside. Now the original recipe, hi Sherry, and Dell's here too, that's awesome. Now I'm just going to tip this camera a little bit this way so you can see what it is that we're doing here. And you can see that I am more than prepared to drink a lot of coffee this morning because I have 4 cups going. But before we do the 4 cups, we are going to do our coffee sweeteners. Now you want to, once you've got everything together in the pot, you want to cook it for 10 or 15 minutes just on a really slow boil. Once it gets to a boil, you want to keep cooking it. And then we are going to add our flavorings. Now, what is your favorite flavor of coffee creamer? And I have a list of several of them here, and we're just going to pick a couple. Okay. I think the first one that we're going to do is Almond Joy. So I'm only doing about half. You know what? I've changed my mind already. If you want a vanilla creamer, just add a teaspoon of vanilla to this and you're good to go. Now I'm splitting the base recipe in half because I want to do a few different ones. So the first one, I think, is going to be caramel macchiato. How do you say that? Macchiato? I don't know. I don't speak Spanish very well. So we're going to, don't really need the scale for this, so let's make it a little bit less tippy. We're going to fill this jar about 3/4 full. And then to that we are going to add some caramel flavoring. Caramel extract. Now, you know, I'm not a real fan of caramel extract or any artificial flavoring. And if you want this caramelized, you can do that just by browning your butter before you make the base, and it will come out beautifully. But for today, now this is about 3/4 cup, and to that I'm going to add half a teaspoon of caramel flavoring. And I had it. It was right here. I had my, there it is. You know, I have so many flavorings out right now, I can't keep track of them all. And I'm going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla flavoring. Or this is not flavoring, this is pure vanilla. And it is also organic. Okay, now I have everything out here and I can see where it is. So now let's give this a little bit of a whip, and that's all there is to it. Now you can, once you get this where you want it, and you can add more or less flavoring to this. Let's see what this tastes like. Do we need more? No, we really don't. We really don't. This is yummy and buttery. Now, do you have a milk frother? Because if you do, you're just going to put a tablespoon or 2 of this in your coffee. Use your milk frother. You are going to have an absolutely beautiful cup of coffee that is all frothy and yummy and yep, licking the spoon off. That's what I'm doing. Make sure you mark these. Now I have, pardon me, I have somewhere I have little address labels, and I will put one of those on there in a little while, but for right now we're not going to worry about it. Okay, so the next one that we're going to make is Black Forest. I don't know that I've ever even actually seen this in the stores as a coffee creamer, but we're going to do it anyway. Okay, so we're going to do this again. We're going to fill it about 3/4 full. So we've got about 3/4 cup. And we are going to get cacao powder. Now this one you want to do when it's hot, because you want this cacao to sit in there and just really, okay, where did it go? I had it. There it is. Okay, so again, we need about half a teaspoon. And this is a quarter of a teaspoon. So we're going to add 2 of these in here. And we've got this other one just boiling away over here. And so it's going to be wonderful. Now you want to keep an eye on this because the last thing you want is for this to scorch on the bottom because it's not going to be any good. And you will notice that I'm using my Amson Naturals cacao powder because that is my favorite brand, as you all know. Okay, so we have a little bit of cocoa in here. We put in half a teaspoon and we're going to get that mixed in. Now you can make this ahead of time and put it in the fridge. And that cocoa is going to, or cacao is going to have time to, yep, that's good. It's going to have time to just really get in there. Now, I do not have cherry flavoring, so I'm going to add about a tablespoon of Da Vinci's. That is not cherry, that's raspberry. That would have been an interesting cup of coffee. But this is cherry. Now we're going to put about a tablespoon of Da Vinci sugar-free cherry flavoring in here. If you have a selection of Da Vinci flavorings at your house, by all means, feel free to add those. This is something that you can think about what your favorite flavors are, and you can mix this up just exactly how you want it. Okay, now I promise you, you are going to love this. So now we have our Black Forest. And so we're just going to set this aside now. We have one more that we're going to do here right after I clean up my mess from our Black Forest. Okay. Now the last one that we are going to do is Coffee Crisp. My favorite chocolate bar before I started doing keto was Coffee Crisp, and we're going to do a Coffee Crisp creamer. Now, we'll get this out of here. Now in this one, so you can see that one recipe, so remember we had 125 grams of butter and 45 grams of coconut oil and half a cup of sweetener. Now you can add more sweetener if you feel like you need it. This isn't, yeah, it's pretty close to 3/4 of a cup. Okay, so for this one, we need half a teaspoon of cacao again. And I'm going to use the one that I dipped in here last time. Okay, and then, because it's Coffee Crisp, so we're making a coffee sweetener and we are putting coffee, instant coffee in it, but that's okay. So we're putting in half a teaspoon of instant coffee as well. Your morning keto coffee or your dessert keto coffee does not have to be boring. And we'll do more of these. I think maybe, whoops, that's not what I need. I need a fork. We'll do more of these, and I think maybe what I'll do, because there are a ton of flavors, and I really want to thank Tracy Howe for turning me on to this and for providing some of the recipes that we're using. Actually, I think, yeah, 2 out of 3 of the recipes that we're using today came straight from Tracy, so I appreciate that very much. Okay. This even looks like a Coffee Crisp bar. Now, because this has been cooling because of what we're doing today, this has been cooling for a while, so oh my goodness. I got to tell you guys, that is beyond amazing. I could eat that with a spoon. Not a good idea, but I could do it. Okay, now, this one that we have simmering on the stove is done. And we are going to get out some more jars. And I'm making sure that I line these up in order because otherwise, when I go to label them after we're done here today, I am not going to know just exactly what I am doing. Okay, let's turn this. Get this pointed a little bit more at me. How about that? Okay, here we go. Now, we did 3 last time. So we are going to split this up into 3 jars. Now this has coconut cream and coconut oil in it. And that's important to remember because this one is going to solidify more in the fridge. If you want to use almond milk or coconut milk, that's absolutely fine. You can definitely do that. Remember though that if you're using almond milk, you've got the whole nut thing to deal with. If you're using either of them, make sure that you're checking to see whether there's added sugar, because a lot of them have added sugar. Okay, now the very first one that I saved these ones to do until right now because I wanted to do the ones with coconut in them. Okay, where is my coconut? I have coconut. Okay, this is imitation coconut extract and imitation rum extract. Sorry about that, guys. But sometimes when it's just a wee little bit, you just gotta do it. Now, I know I keep saying this to you guys, and I'm going to say it again. Anytime you're doing something like this, a recipe is a guideline. So feel free to add a little bit more, add a little bit less. Do you not like sugar in your coffee? You just want the flavor without the sweet? That's fine. Don't add the sweetener. It is entirely up to you. Okay, now we are... Where am I? Oh my goodness. Okay. You know, I thought I knew what I was doing here, and I just got my sheets all mixed up. Okay, we are going to do Almond Joy. That is absolutely one of my favorites. So we're going to put in half a teaspoon of coconut. We're going to put in... What do we need? We need coconut and almond and some cocoa powder. So coconut and almond, we're going to put in half a teaspoon of almond. You know, the problem with having a base and then having a whole bunch of recipes that you can put in there, for me anyway, is my brain ends up going a whole bunch of different directions and then I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But that's okay. Now you can make half a dozen of these and keep them in the fridge. Now when you do that, remember this one is going to solidify more, so you can just take it out by the tablespoon. So the wide mouth jar ends up being very important. There we go. So we have coconut, we have almond, and we're going to put in half a teaspoon of cacao. That's about half a teaspoon. Which jar am I working in here? That one? That would be the one. Okay, that is for the cacao. And we're going to fill it up to about 3/4, and I need to find another fork. That is absolutely delicious. Now we are going to whip this up. Do I have another fork? There's one. I'm going to need 2 more of these too, because I don't want to get the flavors all crossed. Okay. Now, if you're making a bigger batch of this, you can throw it in the blender and put it in a bigger jar. Okay, let's see. Did we do a good job? Oh, yeah. Yep, we did a good job. Now, is this going to taste exactly like an Almond Joy chocolate bar? No, it probably isn't. But is it going to be absolutely amazing and take your brain back to that memory of the Almond Joy chocolate bar? Yep, I believe it probably will. Okay, now, the next one that we are going to do, you can do, and I know I mentioned this before, you can do just a plain vanilla. Just by adding some vanilla flavoring to the base. And this base also, if you have a recipe that calls for condensed milk, Eagle brand is the brand in Canada, Eagle brand condensed milk. That's what this base is Eagle brand condensed milk, basically. So we're going to do eggnog next, because eggnog is good all year round. And in the eggnog, we're going to put in half a teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, and we're going to add a full teaspoon of rum flavoring. Or almost a scant teaspoon. 3/4 of a teaspoon. And the magic in this one comes from a 1/4 of a teaspoon of TSL nutmeg. Now here's a did you know. Did you know that your spices start to lose their flavor after they're 3 months old? They're not as potent as they were. Now we're going to fill this about 3/4 full, and then we're going to whip it up. Yep, that is amazing. Now this one you want to let it steep, because the eggnog, or the pumpkin pie spice that we've put in here needs time to really incorporate. If you have a hot cup of coffee and you're just putting a little bit into your hot cup of coffee, a little bit, and you can do that if you're making a keto coffee. And again, with or without sweetener, you can add some butter, some coconut oil, a little bit of MCT oil if you want, and some nutmeg, and it is absolutely decadent. You will love it. Okay, we have one more jar. Let's see how much of our base we have left. Did I figure this out right? Oh, I did. Nailed it. I usually make at least one boo-boo when we get together on Wednesdays or Fridays or Sundays, whichever day you're talking about. I either forget something or... But today, this part at least is working out just perfectly. But I think I'm going to add a little bit more to this one. Okay. So you can see we have our base that we can add any flavors to. We have 5 already made. And this one, which one should we do? I think we're going to do Irish cream. Who doesn't like Irish cream in their coffee? Okay. Irish cream, first thing that you need is about a teaspoon. That's half a teaspoon. But we're going to put a teaspoon of instant coffee and half a teaspoon of vanilla. That is not vanilla, but that would have been interesting. half a teaspoon of vanilla. Maybe we should get this measurement right. Whoops. Now, if you get a little bit extra in there, and I just did, not a big deal. Okay, and then we're going to put in about a quarter of a teaspoon of almond extract. All we're missing now is the Irish whiskey, hey? Okay, and we're going to mix this up. Now, this, seriously, guys, this has a lot of fat in it. And let's just see how this tastes. You like all that noise that I'm making? Okay, but you can see that that is mixing in just beautifully, and it's nice and dark brown. And okay, so now, oh, that is awesome. Now we need to check these out and see how well we've done once we put it in coffee. So, should we start out with the Black Forest? I think we should. Okay, let me clean up some of my mess. But we're going to keep the tablespoon out because we're going to try this with just 1 tablespoon. Because this is so rich and decadent, we're not going to need lots and lots more. So, we're going to move these out of the way. And I am going to have a pot of coffee magically appear. Watch this, it's great. Okay. Now I am adding 1 tablespoon. 1 tablespoon, or do we need 2? I don't know. You know, we're going to add 1 tablespoon because if I drink all of this coffee myself, I'm going to float away today. So, we're just going to fill that half full. And give it a bit of a stir. We'll set this over here. Black Forest coffee, is it worth drinking? It absolutely is worth drinking, most definitely. Now this is about half a cup of coffee. You know what? Why don't we measure and see how much I put in here? Oh, measuring cup is right. Measuring cup will appear. You know, I've mentioned to you guys that I have Dell home for the next 3 months. Measuring cups are somewhere. It will appear. But I do think that I want a little bit more of this flavoring. So I've just added about another tablespoon. So I've got about a cup of coffee. So you can see if I'm putting 2 tablespoons of fat in here, this is going to be a lot of fat. Oh, and it is going to be a lot of deliciousness. So that is the Black Forest. That is amazing. Now, because I'm putting creamer in each of these, now how much of this do we have? 150 milliliters ish. Okay. So we're putting in, I put in about 1.5 tablespoons for 150 mils of coffee. I think I'd put in about the same for a full cup of coffee. If you want to thin this out a little bit by adding some almond milk or coconut milk, do that. It's going to go farther. Now, if you're going to do that, though, you're going to want to increase the sweetener. So you'll want to go from half a cup to a cup, maybe, unless you don't want sweetener at all. In that case, you're just going to increase the flavorings that you put in. Okay, so that's that one. Now, what did we make this one? Almond Joy, I believe. Did we make Almond Joy? Take this out of the way. Now I am just going to pour a wee bit of coffee in here because I don't want to have to use very much of this. So that's about 1/4 cup of coffee. That's amazing. That is amazing. So increase the sweetener, increase the flavorings, dress up your keto coffee. You don't have to go without just because you're doing keto. Keto is not about giving up the things that you love. It's about finding a new way to have them. So I hope all of you will be making some coffee flavoring at home and enjoying your keto coffee. I know that's what I'm going to be doing. I don't think that I can quite try the other 4 of these right at the moment, but you can be sure that I will. I hope all of you do your very best to live your best version of this shining life. That's what I'm going to be doing until I see you on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Mountain. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Enjoy the summer weather, assuming that you're having summer weather where you live. Okay, that is all from me for today. I am going to go and enjoy my coffee. Bye for now.